Hey friend, in today's video, I am going to be painting with just 3 colors. So I'm going to show you the 3 colors I choose and why, and how to get a full range of values and a crazy amount of secondary and tertiary colors just from these 3 colors. So if you're curious, or maybe you're on a tight budget and you just want to know what 3 colors I have to have in my palette, or you want to just implement some sort of new creative artistic challenge in your life, you want to spice things up and just try getting a full range of colors in just using 3 colors, then let's get then I'll show you in this video which 3 colors I choose and why, so let's dive in. All right, so I've done this video before, but with the old paint brand that I used to use, Winsor & Newton, and now I've recently switched to MAIMERIBLU watercolor. If you didn't know, we have a couple of videos that will link in the description here for you to check out. But I'm gonna show you my 3 choices. If I could only choose 3 colors from this MAIMERIBLU line, what they would be. The first is Pyrrole Red, which is what I'm picking up right now. It's very similar to Scarlet Lake from the Winsor & Newton line. So it's got like an orange undertone. It's a very warm bias red. And then I'm going to pick the 2 other primary colors. So there's 3 primary colors. If you're unfamiliar with basic color theory, there's 3 primary colors: red, blue, and yellow. This yellow's got a little bit of green on it, so I'm gonna pick up some of that green to get under there. This is called primary yellow from MAIMERIBLU. So red, blue, and yellow, you can't mix or get to these 3 primary colors using any other colors. So these are pretty much the staples. You should have red, a version of blue, a version of yellow in your palette. And I like to have a couple versions of each. So what I mean by a couple versions is every single color in your palette and in the world can have a warm or a cool bias. So this primary yellow here has a cool bias. There's a little bit of just like a tinny blue touch of green undertone to it. It's a more bright, kind of sharp yellow. Obviously, a warm yellow is a yellow ochre. It's a really warm yellow. But lemon yellow deep from Winsor & Newton, and then also there's a lemon yellow deep in MAIMERIBLU is a warm yellow. And so this primary yellow is a bit of a cool yellow. And then I've got Prussian blue is going to be my 3rd color. So this Prussian blue, I had Prussian blue from Winsor & Newton in my previous palette, and I actually like this Prussian blue better than the other one. This is, I don't know why, it's just like a little bit creamier texture. So my 3 colors that I'm going to be working with today are those 3: Prussian blue, Pyrrole Red, and primary yellow. So from these 3 colors, you can get a full range of secondary and tertiary colors. Secondary colors being equal parts 2 primary colors. So equal parts blue and red makes purple, equal parts blue and yellow makes green, equal parts red and yellow makes orange. And then you have tertiary colors, which lean towards one primary color over the other. So red, orange would just have a little bit more red in the mixture than yellow, so on and so forth. But something that I want to talk about a little bit in color mixing is it's a lot simpler than people make it. I get so many questions about how do I know what colors to mix together to get certain hues. And you really, once you get the foundations of color theory, like basically just studying the color wheel, understanding what combinations of primary colors make, and then primary colors and secondary colors make for tertiary colors, that's a great base. But then I want to talk about what's called neutralizing colors or desaturating them. So if I make purple, if I make a pretty neutral mid-range purple, equal parts purple, to neutralize that color or to make it more of an earth tone purple, all I have to do is grab its contrast or complementary color. So purple's contrasting color or complementary color, which is the color that sits directly opposite of it on the color wheel, is yellow. So when I grab some of that yellow in different amounts, it's going to start to desaturate or neutralize that purple. So it basically makes it an earth tone or grayish color. And it's a really nice way of blending in some browns, some grays into your watercolor pieces. So if I wanted to do red, if I wanted to neutralize this red, all I would have to do is mix up green. So blue and yellow for green and neutralize some of that red. And brown has an undertone of red in it. So if you did a big mixture of green with this red, you would get a nice brown, which I'm gonna do right now because we're gonna paint some flowers. So before I get into painting what we're gonna paint today with these 3 colors, turning into a wide range of colors, I'm obviously using my MAIMERIBLU colors. All the supplies that I'm using are in the description, but this is a prototype Princeton brush. We have been working hard together to create a really nice filbert brush since I've been loving filbert brushes lately, and this is gonna be coming out soon. And then the St. Cuthbert's Mill Saunders Waterford cold press paper. So I am absolutely obsessed with these supplies. If you haven't noticed, I've switched over recently. So links to all of the supplies that I'm using are in the description of the video, and shouts to all of the brands for supplying these supplies for these videos today. So before we start painting our painting today, I'm going to show you just like a basic overview of how many colors you can get from just these 3 colors. So I've got Pyrrole Red, just that color on my brush, and it's full buttery consistency. So it's pretty opaque, really thick, and quite dark. And then obviously I can do a value scale with that and slightly lighten that color by gradually releasing the pigment in my water cup to lighten the color. So just by adding more water to a color, you're lightening the color. So with watercolor, you don't need to add white paint. You can just make it more transparent or more light with water, adding more water to the mixture. If you don't know how to do this, check out my tea to butter exercise video, which helps you with water control, consistency, and all of that. So here's just a simple, we can get a whole lot more values within Pyrrole Red, but here's just 5 of the values that we can get out of that one color. And then same thing, we can do our primary yellow swatch in full buttery thickness, and then gradually lighten it with water. Always making sure to swipe off any excess water before going to my paper so that it's not too puddly until we get basically just a tint. And then same thing with our Prussian blue, grabbing a lot of that pigment on my brush. Really dark, rich, kind of midnight blue. And then gradually getting lighter with each value swatch. So obviously right there, we've got our 3 primary colors, but even within those 3 primary colors, we have all of these lighter versions of those colors. Next, I'm gonna mix up some red and primary yellow. So this is a good yellow orange, so adding in a little bit more red, and you can see how different these oranges become. From a yellow orange to a mid orange to a red orange. So very close to pure Pyrrole Red, but obviously has more of an orangey tone. And then with each of those 3, you can obviously get the full range of those values by lightening it with water. And let's say I wanted to use that orange undertone, that red-orange color, and turn it into a brown. So from here, orange's contrasting color or complementary color is blue. This Prussian blue is a very strong color, so I want to start with just a little bit, and we're neutralizing that color, and it turns it into like a dark grayish purple because we're combining that blue with red, and then there's some yellow in it that's neutralizing that. So to show that color, it's a really pretty like shadow color to add onto your flowers. Or maybe we want to shift it a little bit and make it more of a rich, almost like dragon's blood red. So just adding some more red to that makes it a nice red violet. So since I'm going to be painting flowers, I definitely want to mix up a brown. So I'm going to grab, let's do this a little bit thicker, so I'm gonna grab some of that red, mix up a green, because we'll need greens for our leaves. So we've got a nice blue green here. There's a lot more blue in that mixture. That's a really nice green. And then if I want it to be a little more yellow green, just add more of that primary yellow. Some great greens there. Now let's see what adding this blue green to the red does. It makes a bit more of a chocolatey brown than a yellow ochre-y brown. If you have more yellow in your green, it'll make more of a yellow ochre-y brown. So just by adding a little more primary yellow to this, it's gonna start getting more light beige. So depending on the tone you want or the hue you want in your brown, you'll either add a little bit more yellow or you can add some more blue, and that will kind of give it that grayish green undertone to the brown. So many different little shifts that you can do just by adding different combinations of primary colors. And then we can warm it back up with some red. A little more blue turns it into a purple because we're combining red and blue for a good like purple undertone gray. And what happens if we add some of this gray to our blue-green? So we can just keep going and going with our combinations and getting really interesting earth tones, brighter, vibrant tones, and more. And then let's show this green with red. That's a good brown, so I'm gonna save this brown, maybe add a touch of yellow to it for our stems. I also really like this gray. I'm gonna build it back up a little bit, make a thicker mixture of it. Doot. Just a touch of that red. It's like a bluish gray now. Now we need to go back and add a green, a really thick green, because I'm gonna use a lot of green. That's nice. A little more blue. So I could keep going. We could go on for eternity, mixing up different variations of these colors. And some of these colors are really similar, but just a little slight difference in hue just because of a different combination of the three primary colors. So all of these colors on my sheet of paper right now are from those three colors: Pyrrole Red, Primary Yellow, and Prussian Blue. They're all peas.
Oh.
And you can do that with any three primary colors, whether it's from MAIMERIBLU or a different brand. But this is great if you're on a budget or if you want to explore color mixing and color theory and get better at practicing those foundations. Doing something like this where you're just kind of swatching for days to see what comes of it. And then if you have a pencil, you could write like what you mixed up to get that color. So now I'm going to show you a loose wet and wet style fun rose painting and show you how it can look so complex and so beautiful and vibrant and lush with just three colors. And I'm going to start with some clean water and just kind of paint in the shape of my rose first. If you don't know how to paint loose style flowers like this, I've done a few videos on my YouTube and I go even more in depth on my Patreon channel. But I'm basically using the top edge of my filbert brush to create the top edge of each petal and then pointing each petal towards the middle of the flower. This could be a rose or a peony, but I'm working wet and wet, so I'm going really quickly and making sure I'm using a lot of water. So I'm gonna start with my shadow color first, kind of a cooler gray. This is what we mixed up just right before starting this video. I'm adding a little bit more blue to it. and it's really wet, so I'm just gonna dab on my paper towel just a little bit. I'm just gonna scoop this color in just for a little bit of shadow on some of these, kind of as an undertone. I'm gonna add some reds and yellows to it in a bit. I'm gonna grab some yellow and warm it up with this brown that I have mixed up. Maybe kind of punch it in there a little bit. And then we'll start to grab red, but I don't want to go full dark red just yet. I want mostly water. The more water you have on your brush with wet and wet, the more it's gonna spread. So if you don't want it to spread too much, then you want the consistency to be a little bit thicker. So I'm just kind of starting towards the outside of the petals and working my way in. Starting with a lighter color first, and maybe a deep red brown. Starting to carve out some of those petals. And now I want like a purple, more purple gray. And then we're just kind of carving in some more reds, because this is a red rose, but a red rose isn't just red. There's a lot of undertone colors, a lot of shadows. So even like up here, I want to start separating some of these petals with a slightly darker red. Maybe it's this dragon's blood red that we mixed up with blue, red, and a little bit of the brown mixture we got. And now I'm going to start painting in some of my leaves while this is drying, and I'm going to come back to this with some more color in a second. Grab more yellow. Lots of water. I'm going to pull out this C curve. You could go C curve like this and frame it, but I want to kind of come down and then add another bud over here. So starting at the top middle of where all those petals are kind of coming in together. We've got some fun blues. Gonna put a little bud there. So I'm just gonna do like a square shape with a little C curve on the side. Now I want some orange in this flower, this big flower here, to bridge the gap between warm and cool a little bit, or red and yellow a little bit in between here. There's some yellow. So I'm gonna grab some more of this primary yellow and mix it with more red. I don't want to add too much of this orange because I'm really liking how the darks and the lights hues in the purples and reds are showing this like big contrast, so I don't want to overcome that too much. I just want to maybe just add a touch of orange here and there, and only where it's still wet, because there's some areas where it's just a little too dry and it will come out kind of funky. So I'm gonna wait for that to dry. So while this is drying, let's kind of make this come up here. Maybe do another little bud up here. Now let's pull out. Need some more green. That's a good green. Now let's pull some of that green from up here down in here. Okay, now I'm gonna mix up a dark brown red that's really opaque. And I'm just gonna add in some accents on this first flower to fluff up some of the detail. So we've got a lot of shadow tones, mid-tones, and our highlights, all from just 3 colors. This piece, I used a lot of my more neutralized colors that I mixed up with the 3 primary colors, and so I wanted to keep it pretty neutral with my colors instead of doing bright, vibrant colors. So that's something that's important with your paintings, is sticking with a consistent vibe or aesthetic with your colors and the tones. So if you're going for more neutralized colors instead of your bright, vibrant red, blue, and yellow, they can obviously work their way in accents. Okay, so just a few more little accents, and you can get darker and thicker and add more and more depth the more paint you add in your mixtures to make them more thick. So we've got this really deep, dark blue purple that we're just gonna add in here and there. And the trick to this is just kind of blurring your eyes a bit and seeing the rows of petals come forward as you're painting. But there you go. All from 3 colors, adding depth with more color, combining more and more consistency so that it's buttery and thick, adding also more depth by going lighter, by adding more water to your colors to make them more transparent and light. So we've got a full range of light reds and oranges and purples, and then deep dark reds, oranges, and purples. And then a nice range of blue grays, green grays, and then a little bit more of these rich greens up in here. So all from 3 colors. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful and informative. Let me know in the comments below if you would change up anything. If you were like me and you were like, I only would work from these 3 colors, what would they be and why? I would love to hear other perspectives, other opinions. Obviously, everything in art is pretty much subjective, so I chose these 3 colors because I did. But you might have a different reason for choosing 3 different colors. So let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching our videos, for liking and subscribing. If you need further resources on watercolor information, just like getting grips with watercolor, we have the complete beginner's guide to watercolor on this channel. It's like a 2-hour in-depth class on all things watercolor. And then if you want to take your art skills to the whole nother level, then make sure to check out my Patreon, jennarainey.com/Patreon. That's where I'm uploading twice a month, exclusive tutorials only for my patrons. There's a community where I'm involved and all the other students are involved, asking questions, getting feedback. There's live Q&As and live art classes, so make sure you check that out if you're wanting to go even deeper with your art. Also, for more fundamentals on sketching, watercolor, finding your style, how to get into flow state, how to tap into this amazingly beautiful state of being in flow and producing theta brainwaves, then check out my course, The Art Within. It's going to help you excavate and find and cultivate the skill that you have already within you, finding what your style of intuition is with art, and developing your visuals, your intuition, and your own individual style with art. So that's in the course, The Art Within. So go to jennarainey.com/the-art-within to check it out. Join the waitlist if it's not open yet, but it will be open soon if it isn't open right now. So check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.